2 weeks ago, if you asked me what my favorite movie of all time was, I probably would have looked you dead in the eye and told you that the answer to that question was Spider-Man Into the Silent Voice. But if you and I were to keep speaking on the topic, you'd probably eventually find out that my second favorite movie of all time was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you ask me what my favorite movie is today, I'm still finna say A Silent Voice. I will always say A Silent Voice. But look, if I'm being honest, the second place spot that used to be held by Into the Spider-Verse has officially been usurped by the movie sequel, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It feels crazy saying this too, because before I watched Across the Spider-Verse, I was definitely of the opinion that the original Spider-Verse was like a 9.9 out of 10, borderline flawless movie. Like, even though I had faith in the talent working on the sequel, I just could not for the life of me even begin to conceptualize what the this movie could do that would make me enjoy it more than its predecessor. But of course, irrespective of my reservations, I went to go see the sequel, and I mean, like, yeah, no duh, I went to see that shit, bro. Do you see the color of my skin? Alright then. I actually went to see that shit a day early because I'm f***ing like that. But anyway, after watching the movie and taking about a week to gather my thoughts on it, I think I can pretty confidently say that in my books, this movie has greatly surpassed its predecessor, which is a feat that like 2 weeks ago, I would have said was practically impossible. You see, the reason the movie that I once deemed as unsurpassable got, well, surpassed is because watching Across the Spider-Verse actually highlighted in my mind a gripe with the first movie that I didn't realize I had yet. Even though the movie is still beyond S tier in my books, the issue that I now kind of have with the original Spider-Verse movie is that it's a Spider-Man movie. Like, looking back, when I walked into that theater to watch Spider-Verse back in 2018, I low-key could have basically told you how most of that movie was gonna go before even watching it. Like, despite how trailblazing the visual aspects of the movie were, a lot of the story elements were like basically the same thing we'd seen in every Spider-Man story since the 50s. Like, I knew that he was gonna get bit by a spider and that he was gonna lose someone close to him, probably an uncle. I knew that for the first 2/3 of the movie, give or take, our fledgling Spider-Man would be reluctant to accept his duty as protector of the innocent, but by the latter third of the movie, he will accept that with great power comes y'all get the idea. Now, even though I don't think that the OG Spider-Verse following the tropes of its predecessors is a bad thing per se, especially with how good the execution of the tropes was, I do think that it's reflective of one of my biggest issues overall with entertainment media in the past decade, bro. That being that the corporate entities that decide what creative projects get to be produced are simply afraid to switch things up. Now, honestly, bro, from a business perspective, I get the vibes, bro. I feel like most people aren't dorks like me, and probably you if you're watching this video, and I'd further bargain that most people don't want their entertainment to be particularly novel or experimental. Like, most people who go to watch a new Spider-Man reboot aren't actually gonna want to see some new shit. They're gonna want to see some shit that can give them the same feeling that they had when they first discovered Spider-Man as a kid, which is cool, of course. I'm low-key the same way with a lot of anime I watch, to be honest. Like, I'm still chasing the high that watching DBZ on YouTube gave me as a kid, and I'll probably never attain that level of happiness in my life again, if we're being honest. I think an issue arises though when these corporations take that information and decide they ain't gonna do shit besides make the same shit over and over again, while simultaneously striking down things that are new before they even get the chance to spread their wings. Like, I'm 21 years old and I've seen more mid-Scooby-Doo reboots in my life than presidents. Bro, that is not okay. Now, by no means am I trying to call the OG Spider-Verse mid, bro. Like, come on now. I really slap myself in my shit if I ever caught myself talking like that. But even though it's a great movie, I do think it can be seen as a bit samey. Story-wise, at least. This is why I think Across the Spider-Verse really shines when put up against its predecessor. Into the Spider-Verse was a good-ass Spider-Man movie, but Across the Spider-Verse is just a good-ass movie period that happens to use the idea of Spider-Man to tell a dope-ass story. Like, it takes the sameness of Into the Spider-Verse and then works with it to tell probably the most unique Spider-Man story that I've ever seen in my life. And as if this alone wasn't enough, while telling this creative-ass Spider-Man story, it actually actively provides what I interpret to be a commentary on the sameness of the entertainment industry. Like, look, I don't know if I'm tweaking. I know there's probably about 120 different interpretations you can take from this movie, but this is my personal interpretation of Across the Spider-Verse's overarching conflict. Miguel O'Hara represents those narrow-minded entertainment corporations that I was just talking about earlier. For starters, he's a hypocrite, just like basically every nigga who runs a big corporation. But nah, let me chill before these niggas get my shit taken down, bro. Like, I'm not trying to do this right now, bro. I'm sorry, YouTube. I'm sorry. But nah, seriously though, Miguel's job as the leader of the fucking Spider-Verse army is to make sure that everything runs smoothly with all the Spider-Men. And so in order to do that, he's adopted a very narrow interpretation of what quote-unquote works. In his mind, basically every Spider-Man must have their 2 canon events with no exception, and yeah, y'all get the idea. Miles, on the other hand, represents, damn, I gotta really say some smart shit here, because, like, Miles represents the force of creativity. Yeah, that works. I'm gonna work with that. He represents the creative ass projects that will probably never get to see the light of day because they're a little different, and some nigga who wears his necktie way too tight around his throat decided that the project didn't fit into the relatively narrow standards of what could be profitable. So like, let me paint the picture of like how I see this metaphor, right? Miles' more artwork comes into this, it's like, hey, what if we made a live action version of Spider-Man? But instead of him being white, and then Disney O'Hara just pounds him dead in his shit like, nigga, no! Before even considering if his idea could be successful and why this idea means so much to him in the first place. You see where I'm going with this metaphor though, right? It's kind of like how Miguel was dead set on the idea that every Spider-Man had to have their 2 canon events for the safety of the continuity, but we as the viewer could see through Gwen's story that this might not be entirely true because she finessed her father, who was the police chief, from getting killed, and I don't see her universe like starting to implode on itself. So like, you know, maybe Miguel is like not right all the way. I will say though, it's kind of hard to see the metaphor all the way through in the scope of this video because Miles and Miguel's storyline hasn't been completed yet, but I'm hoping that my interpretation still stands as valid by the end of the 3rd movie. Like, what's that gonna be called? Beyond the Spider-Verse? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Across the Spider-Verse set up the 3rd movie with the craziest alley-oop, bro. So like, I'm gonna need Beyond the Spider-Verse to bring her home with the craziest slam dunk in cinematic history, bro. Anyway, so this is the point in the video where I was gonna really start glazing. Like, I was gonna start talking about specific parts of the movie that I found hard as like, I don't know, the Universe 42 Prowler reveal and things of that nature. But I ain't even gonna lie to y'all, I'm kind of sleepy right now, and like, you know what they say, bro, with great sleepiness comes great nap ability. And so like, I don't know, bro, I'ma just hit y'all with one of these, and yeah, I don't know, I guess I'll see y'all next year, I guess, or something like that, bro.